Queen Zaravek stood at the large window of her royal ship, her 6 shimmering eyes watching the battle below. Her tall, slender body was covered in armor that caught the light of nearby stars. The war with the Draxids had gone on for too long, almost 50 years now. Many had died fighting across different star systems, but today the Queen faced a loss far more personal than any before. "Your Majesty," said Commander Vextor, bowing his head as he entered. "I bring news from the front." The Queen did not turn. "Speak." "We have lost contact with Princess Lyra Vex's command ship. Our last transmission showed they were under heavy attack near Novan Prime. We believe the ship has been destroyed." Queen Zara's outer shell hardened, a natural response of her species when facing danger or extreme emotion. "Show me the evidence," she demanded. The commander activated a screen showing the battle footage. The princess's ship, marked with royal colors, was surrounded by enemy vessels. Then came a bright flash. When the light faded, only pieces of metal floated where her daughter's ship had been. "We have searched the area," continued the commander. "No escape pods were detected. I am deeply sorry, Your Majesty." Queen Zara closed her inner eyelids briefly. Araxians rarely showed grief openly, but the slight tremble in her lower limbs betrayed her feelings. "Prepare the funeral rites," she said, her voice low and controlled. "At dawn, we will send her empty pod to join the stars, as is our way." "Yes, Your Majesty." When the commander left, Queen Zara allowed herself a moment of private grief. Lyra had been her only child, born after years of trying. The princess had grown into a strong leader, beloved by their people. She was to be the future of the Araxian Empire. Now that future was gone, the Queen moved to her private chamber and touched the wall panel. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a small object, a childhood toy that had belonged to her daughter. Lyra had carried it everywhere until her 10th year, when royal training began in earnest. "My child," whispered the Queen to the empty room, "your sacrifice will not be forgotten." She replaced the toy and straightened her posture. There would be time for mourning later. Now she had a war to win, and with her daughter gone, she had even more reason to ensure the Draxids would pay. Far across the galaxy, in a section of space no Araxian or Draxid had mapped, a small escape pod drifted silently. Inside, 2 figures lay unconscious, their bodies secured by emergency restraints. One was clearly Araxian, with the distinctive blue-green shell and 6-limbed body of the royal family. The other was something the Araxians had never officially encountered, a human. Jack Miller had been having an ordinary day when everything changed. As the lead mechanic on the exploration vessel Horizon, he had been fixing a problem with the oxygen recyclers when Captain Samantha West's voice came over the intercom. "All hands battle stations. We've detected massive energy discharges nearby. Unknown alien conflict in progress." Jack had rushed to his emergency station in engineering. The Horizon wasn't a military vessel. It was an exploration ship mapping uninhabited worlds at the edge of human space. They had no weapons beyond the basic point defense systems needed to destroy small meteors. "Hold position," the captain had ordered. "We're observing only. Keep our profile low." But the alien battle had shifted, moving toward their position faster than they could retreat. Jack remembered the violent shake as something hit their ship, the blaring alarms, and the captain's final order. "All hands abandon ship." He had been running toward the escape pods when part of the ceiling collapsed. Through the newly formed hole, he saw something crash through the hull of their ship. Another, smaller alien vessel, clearly damaged. Acting on instinct, Jack changed course. Inside the crashed alien ship, emergency lights flashed on and off. Jack's environmental suit protected him as he moved through the damaged corridor. That's when he found her, an alien unlike any humanity had documented. She was injured, blue fluid leaking from a crack in her shell but still alive. Their eyes met, his 2 human eyes looking into her 6 alien ones. She said something in a language he couldn't understand, then tried to reach for what looked like a weapon. But she was too weak and collapsed again. Jack made a split-second decision. The Horizon was breaking apart around them. There was no time for first contact protocols or careful diplomacy. He lifted the alien, surprised by how light she was despite her imposing appearance, and carried her to the nearest escape pod. They launched just as the horizon exploded behind them, the force of the blast sending their small pod tumbling into uncharted space. Now, 2 days later, Jack woke to find the alien watching him from the other side of the pod. The universal translator he had grabbed during their escape was working on her language, but couldn't yet provide full translations. Where? This place? The alien's words came through broken and disjointed. We're in an escape pod, Jack explained, speaking slowly. Your ship crashed into mine. I brought you here before my ship exploded. The alien seemed to process this, her head tilting slightly. The translator converted her next words. Why save enemy? Jack shook his head. You're not my enemy. I didn't even know your species existed until 2 days ago. I'm human. My name is Jack Miller. The alien touched her chest with one of her upper limbs. Lyra Vex, Princess of Araxian Empire. Jack's eyes widened. He had rescued some kind of alien royalty. Nice to meet you, Princess, though I wish it were under better circumstances. The escape pod's systems beeped, drawing their attention. The life support was functioning, but their trajectory was taking them further from any known human outposts. The navigation system couldn't identify any nearby planets or stations. Do you know where we are? Jack asked. Can you recognize any star patterns? Lyra moved closer to the window, studying the stars. After a moment, she shook her head. Not Araxian space, not Draxid space. She pointed to a distant cluster. Maybe Vorn territory, not good. Vorn? Are they friends of yours? The princess made a sound that the translator didn't convert, but Jack recognized as something negative. Vorn? Take slaves. All species. Very cruel. Jack checked their supplies. They had emergency rations for about 2 weeks, and the pod's distress beacon was active, though there was no guarantee anyone would detect it or come to help. We need to repair the propulsion system, he said, more to himself than to the princess. If we can get some control over our direction, maybe we can avoid this Vorn territory. Lyra watched as Jack opened the maintenance panel and began examining the pod's systems. Despite their completely different biology and the fact that they had been strangers just days ago, they now shared the same fate. Both lost in space. Both survivors of a war that one of them had no part in. Outside the pod, stars continued their slow dance across the black canvas of space, indifferent to the unlikely pair drifting among them. Neither Jack nor Princess Lyra knew it yet, but their chance meeting would soon change the course of galactic history. 2 months passed in the small escape pod. Jack had managed to repair the basic systems, but without proper parts, the propulsion remained weak. They drifted through space, conserving what little fuel they had. The universal translator worked better now. Princess Lyra and Jack could talk more easily, though some concepts still got lost between their very different languages. Your people never met mine before? Lyra asked one day as Jack tried to fix the water recycler. Jack shook his head. Humans have only been in space for about 300 years. We've met 4 other species, but none like you. Lyra's outer shell changed color slightly, showing surprise. Araxians have traveled the stars for thousands of years. We control 67 systems. 67? Jack whistled. Humans have colonized 12, and that's taken centuries. They had learned much about each other during their time together. Jack told her about Earth, about human cultures and history. Lyra explained the long war between her people and the Draxids, fought over habitable worlds that both species needed. Why? Fight over planets? Jack asked. Humans terraform worlds to make them livable. Lyra's head tilted, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Terraform? We change planets to suit our needs, make them warmer or cooler, add oxygen, grow plants that can live there. Lyra was quiet for a long time after that. Their food supplies were running low. The emergency rations had been meant for 2 weeks, not 2 months. They had been stretching them as much as possible, but Jack was visibly thinner now. Lyra needed less food than humans, but even she was weakening. Look, Jack pointed at the navigation screen. A planet with atmosphere, about 3 days away if we use our remaining fuel. Lyra studied the readings. Not Araxian or Draxid, unknown territory. We don't have much choice, Jack said. Our food will run out in 5 days. Lyra nodded. We land. Jack programmed the course and fired the engines. The small pod shuddered, then began moving toward the distant planet. 3 days later, they entered the planet's atmosphere. The pod was not designed for smooth landings. It shook violently as they descended. Brace yourself, Jack shouted, holding onto the safety straps. Lyra's body stiffened, her natural armor protecting her as the pod crashed through tree-like plants and finally hit the ground. The impact knocked Jack unconscious. When he woke, Lyra was standing over him, one of her limbs pressing something cool to his forehead. You bleed, she said. Red blood. Strange. Jack touched his head and felt a small cut. It's nothing serious. How long was I out? 1 hour, Lyra said. I checked outside. Air is breathable for you. Plants not like Araxian plants. No signs of civilization nearby. Jack slowly stood up. His body ached, but nothing seemed broken. Together they gathered what supplies remained and stepped out of the pod. The planet had a purple-tinged sky and plants that seemed more like giant fungi than earth trees. The air smelled sweet and slightly metallic. We need to find water, Jack said. They had walked for about an hour when they heard the noise, a low humming sound that grew louder. Lyra suddenly grabbed Jack and pulled him behind a large plant. Ships, she whispered. Not Araxian design. 3 metallic vessels appeared, overhead sleek and predatory-looking. They hovered above the crash site of the escape pod. Who are they? Jack asked. Lyra's shell darkened, a sign Jack had learned meant fear or anger. Vorn. Slavers. Very bad. Slavers? Jack felt a chill run through him. We need to move, fast. They tried to slip away quietly, but one of the fungus trees made a loud cracking sound when Jack stepped on a branch. The noise seemed to alert the ships, which immediately changed direction and headed toward them. Run! Lyra shouted. They ran through the strange forest, but the ships quickly caught up. A beam of light shot out from the lead vessel, scanning the ground. When it passed over them, both Jack and Lyra froze in place, unable to move. Paralysis beam, Lyra said, her mouth the only part of her body she could still control. Cannot. Fight it. Figures emerged from the ships, tall, thin aliens with gray skin and 4 arms. They wore armor made of a dark metal and carried weapons Jack didn't recognize. The Vorn surrounded them, making clicking sounds to each other. One stepped forward, pointing a small device at them. It made a series of noises which Jack's translator tried to process. Interesting specimens, came the rough translation. An Araxian far from home. And something new. Add them to the collection. Jack wanted to struggle to fight back, but his body wouldn't respond. The Vorn placed metal collars around their necks, and suddenly Jack could move again, but only to follow, where they were led. The collar seemed to control his muscles. They were taken to the largest ship and placed in separate cells. Jack's cell had 3 other aliens, none of which he recognized. One looked almost human, but with skin that had a greenish tint. Another was short and stocky with 4 eyes. The third looked completely human. When the Vorn left, this alien moved. Closer to Jack. You're human, he said in perfect English. From Earth? Jack stared in surprise. Yes, who are you? Eric Phillips. I was on the exploration ship Starseeker. We were captured 6 months ago while surveying the edge of the Tau Ceti system. He nodded toward the green-skinned alien. That's Zell, kind of like a cousin species to humans. And the 4-eyed one is Grak. He doesn't speak much English. I'm Jack Miller. I was on the horizon. We accidentally got caught in a battle between 2 alien species. My ship was destroyed, but I escaped with a friend. They separated us when we got here. Eric lowered his voice. Your friend? Was it the Araxian? The blue one with 6 limbs? Jack nodded. That's bad. The Vorn keep special specimens, separate. They either sell them to collectors or use them for experiments. Eric showed Jack a scar on his arm. They've been testing human biology, trying to find out how we tick. But an Araxian royal? That's what she is, right? I saw the markings on her shell. She'll be worth a fortune to them. Jack felt sick. We need to get out of here. We need to find her. Eric laughed bitterly. Everyone wants to escape. Nobody ever has. These collars control our movements. The walls are solid metal. The Vorn watch everything. There has to be a way, Jack insisted. He looked around the cell more carefully. What do they want us for? Labor, Eric said. There's a mine on this planet. They dig up some kind of crystal that powers their ships. The work kills most slaves within a year. We're just waiting for our turn to be sent down. Jack thought of Lyra, alone and in danger. She was a princess, used to protection and respect. Now she was a captive, a specimen to be sold or studied. He felt responsible. He had suggested they land on this planet. I'm getting out of here, Jack said firmly, and I'm taking Lyra and all of you with me. Eric shook his head. It's impossible. I've spent 2 months in a tiny pod fixing systems with no spare parts, Jack said. I'm good at impossible. That night, as the others slept, Jack examined his collar carefully. It had a small seam where it closed around his neck. The lock mechanism seemed electronic rather than mechanical. As a mechanic, Jack understood how things worked, how they could be broken and how they could be fixed. This collar was just another system to figure out. Meanwhile, in a different part of the ship, Princess Lyra Vex was using skills none of her captors expected a royal to possess. Before becoming heir to the throne, she had trained with Araxian special forces. She knew how to fight, how to spy, and how to escape. The Vorn had underestimated her, assuming royalty would be soft and helpless. They would soon learn their mistake. And when Lyra escaped, her first goal would be to find the human who had saved her life. Jack Miller had become something unexpected during their months together in the escape pod. He had become her friend. In Araxian culture, such bonds were sacred. No matter what it took, she would find him, and together they would find a way home. Jack spent 3 days watching the Vorn guards and studying the ship's systems. Each morning, slaves were taken to work in the mines. Each evening, they returned tired and covered in dust. The collars kept them obedient, unable to resist commands. In Dimzandimain, his cell, Jack had met another human besides Eric. Her name was Lisa Reeves, a scientist who had been captured during a research mission near the edge of human space. The Vorn have been taking humans for almost a year now, Lisa told Jack quietly. Earth government doesn't know. They think the missing ships were lost to accidents or equipment failure. How many humans are here? Jack asked. Maybe 30, Lisa said. Spread across different work camps. Most don't last long in the mines. Jack shared what he had learned about the collars. They use a low-level electric current to control muscle movement, but every system has a weakness. That night, when the guards were fewer, Jack carefully worked on his collar. Using a small piece of metal he had found in the mine, he probed the seam where the collar closed. There was a tiny gap where the locking mechanism connected to the power source. If I can interrupt the power flow, he whispered to Eric and Lisa, the collar should stop working. It took hours of careful work. But finally Jack felt something click inside the collar. The constant humming against his skin stopped. He tried to move against the collar's usual restrictions and found he could. It worked, he whispered, excited. But I need to leave it on so the guards don't notice. The next step was harder. They needed to find Lyra and escape the ship. Jack had noticed that the ventilation system connected all parts of the ship. The vents were small, but maybe someone could fit through them. I can do it, Lisa said. I'm the smallest of us. Using Jack's makeshift tool, they opened the vent in their cell. Lisa squeezed inside with a promise to find Lyra and report back. Meanwhile, in a different part of the ship, Princess Lyra was already putting her own plan into action. The Vorn kept her in a special containment area with other rare specimens. They had run tests on her, taking samples of her shell and blood. They spoke freely in front of her, not realizing her translator could understand their language. Lyra learned that she was to be sold to a collector who specialized in royal specimens from across the galaxy. The sale would happen in 2 days. She had to act quickly. The princess had noticed that when the Vorn scientists ran certain tests, her collar temporarily deactivated. During the next test, she pretended to be unconscious. When they removed her collar to scan her neck, she suddenly sprang into action. Araxian royals were trained in combat from childhood. Lyra moved with shocking speed, her 6 limbs striking simultaneously. Before the scientists could react, she had knocked 3 unconscious and locked the 4th in a storage cabinet. Free but still trapped in the lab, Lyra searched for a way out. The door was locked, but there was a vent high on the wall. Using furniture as a ladder, she pried it open and climbed inside. The ventilation system was a maze of metal tunnels. Lyra moved carefully, trying to make as little noise as possible. She needed to find Jack and the other humans, then find a way off the ship. In another part of the ventilation system, Lisa crawled through the narrow tunnels. She had been searching for hours, peeking through vents into different rooms. She had seen storage areas, more cell blocks and guard stations, but no sign of the alien princess. As Lisa turned a corner in the vent, she suddenly came face to face with Lyra. Both nearly cried out in surprise before recognizing each other as non-Vorn. "You're the princess," Lisa whispered. "Jack's friend." Lyra's eyes widened. "You know Jack? He is alive?" Lisa nodded. "He sent me to find you. He's disabled his collar and has a plan to escape." Together they made their way back through the vents. When they reached the cell block, Lisa explained the situation to Jack through the vent opening. "We need to disable more collars," Jack said. "And we need weapons." Lyra spoke through the vent. "I know where they keep confiscated items. I saw it when they moved me to the lab. I can get our things." They made a plan. Lyra and Lisa would get weapons and tools from storage. Jack would work on disabling more collars. They would meet at the ship's shuttle bay during the next shift change, when security would be lightest. As Lyra and Lisa disappeared back into the vents, Jack turned to the other prisoners. "Who wants their collar disabled?" By morning, 15 slaves in Jack's block were free from collar control, though still wearing them to avoid detection. Word spread quietly to other blocks. More and more slaves prepared for the escape. The Vorn remained unaware of the growing rebellion. They continued their normal routine, sending slaves to the mines and running tests on their special specimens. At midday, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Vorn guards ran toward the storage area. Lyra and Lisa had been discovered. Jack knew they needed to act now, even though it was earlier than planned. "It's time," he told the others. "Remove your collars. Take anything you can use as a weapon." Across the cell blocks, slaves rose up together. The Vorn were caught off guard by the coordinated attack. They had relied too heavily on the collars and had too few guards to handle a full rebellion. Jack fought his way toward the storage area, determined to find Lyra and Lisa. He found them cornered by 4 guards. Without hesitation, he charged, tackling one guard from behind. Lyra immediately took advantage of the distraction, her combat training evident as she disabled 2 more guards with precise strikes. Lisa grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard and used it to stun the 4th. "We need to get to the shuttle bay," she shouted over the alarms. The 3 of them led a group of escaped slaves through the corridors. Not all would make it. Some fell to Vorn weapons. Others stayed behind to hold corridors and create distractions. But the main group pushed forward. In the shuttle bay, they found 3 transport vessels. Jack used his mechanical skills to override the launch controls, while Lyra and others held off pursuing guards. "We can't take everyone in these shuttles," Jack said grimly, looking at the large number of escaped slaves. "There is a Vorn battleship docked on the upper level," said one of the alien slaves, a tall being with scaly skin. "It could hold hundreds." Lyra made a quick decision. "Lisa, take as many as you can in these shuttles. Jack and I will lead a team to capture the battleship." Lisa nodded. "Be careful." As the shuttles launched with their passengers, Jack, Lyra, and a group of the strongest fighters fought their way to the upper docking bay. The Vorn battleship loomed before them, its size impressive even by Araxian standards. "Can you fly this?" Jack asked Lyra as they fought their way to the bridge. Lyra studied the controls. Similar enough to Araxian designs. "Yes, I can fly it." With the ship secured and Vorn resistance crumbling, they opened the bay doors. Lisa's shuttles docked with the larger ship, transferring the escaped slaves aboard. More continued to arrive from other parts of the facility as word spread of the successful revolt. Standing on the bridge of the captured battleship, Jack looked at the diverse group of freed slaves, humans, Araxians, and dozens of other species he couldn't name. All had been victims of the Vorn. All now looked to him and Lyra with hope. "Where do we go now?" Lisa asked, joining them on the bridge. Lyra turned to Jack. "My mother thinks I am dead. My people continue a pointless war. We must return to Araxian space, and we need to warn Earth about the Vorn," Jack added. Eric stepped forward. "We could do both. Form an alliance. Together, Araxians and humans could stand against the Vorn and maybe even end the war with the Draxids." Princess Lyra looked at the stars on the view screen. "Yes, it is time for change." As the battleship broke orbit, carrying hundreds of freed slaves from dozens of worlds, a new chapter in galactic history began. And it all started because one human mechanic had chosen to save an alien princess. The stolen Vorn battleship traveled through space for 3 weeks. During this time, Jack and Lyra worked together to lead their unusual group of freed slaves. The ship was large enough to hold everyone comfortably, and the Vorn had kept it well stocked, with supplies. Jack spent most of his time in the engine room, making sure the unfamiliar technology continued to function. Lisa Reeves used her scientific knowledge to help the injured, and Eric Phillips organized the humans and other species into working groups. Princess Lyra took command naturally. She had been trained since birth to lead, and even aliens who had never heard of Araxians respected her calm authority. "We are approaching Araxian space," Lyra announced one day as Jack joined her on the bridge. "We must be careful. My people will see a Vorn ship and attack without asking questions." "Can we contact them?" Jack asked. "Let them know you're alive?" Lyra touched the communication panel. "I will try to send my royal code. If any Araxian ships are nearby, they will recognize it." She entered a complex sequence of symbols. For several minutes, there was no response. Then the communication screen lit up with an incoming message. "Unidentified vessel," came a harsh voice in the Araxian language, which Jack's translator converted. "You are transmitting a royal emergency code. State your identity and purpose immediately." Lyra leaned forward. "This is Princess Lyra Vex, daughter of Queen Zara Vex, heir to the Araxian throne. I am alive and returning home aboard a captured enemy vessel." There was a long silence, then, "Transmission received. Hold position. Do not approach further. Authentication protocols are being initiated." Lyra turned to Jack. "They don't believe it's really me. They think it's a trick." "What happens now?" Jack asked. "They will send ships to surround us. If we make any aggressive moves, they will destroy us." Lyra's outer shell darkened slightly. "We must wait." Within hours, 5 Araxian warships appeared around them. They were sleek and powerful, clearly built for battle. Their weapons were aimed directly at the Vorn ship. "Attention vessel claiming royal identity," came a new voice. "A royal authenticator is approaching. Prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." A small ship detached from the largest Araxian vessel and moved toward them. Lyra, Jack, and Eric went to the docking bay to meet the visitors. When the airlock opened, 6 Araxian soldiers entered first, weapons ready. Behind them came an older Araxian with elaborate markings on his shell. "Royal Authenticator Vexmal," Lyra said formally. "I submit to examination." The older Araxian approached cautiously. He carried a small device which he held near Lyra. It scanned her, beeping softly. "DNA pattern confirmed," he said, his voice filled with surprise. "Shell. Pattern analysis confirmed. Voice pattern confirmed." He looked up at Lyra with all 6 eyes wide. "It is truly you, Princess, but how? You were reported dead. Your funeral rites were performed." "It is a long story," Lyra said. One I would prefer to tell my mother directly. Vexmal noticed Jack and the other humans for the first time. And these creatures? They are humans, Lyra said firmly. They saved my life. This one, she indicated Jack, rescued me when my ship was destroyed. They are under my protection and will be treated with respect. The authenticator looked uncertain but bowed slightly. As you command, Princess. The Queen will be informed immediately of your return. Within hours they were escorted to the royal fleet. Jack had never seen ships so large or impressive. The royal flagship was twice the size of the Vorn battleship, with beautiful blue-green markings that matched Lyra's shell. My mother's ship, Lyra explained. The heart of Araxia. When they docked, Lyra seemed nervous for the first time since Jack had met her. It has been many months, she said quietly. She may have changed since believing me dead. They were led through grand corridors decorated with symbols Jack didn't understand. Araxian crew members stopped and stared as they passed, especially at the humans. Few had ever seen such creatures before. Finally, they reached a large door, guarded by Araxian soldiers in elaborate armor. The door slid open to reveal a vast chamber. At the far end, on a raised platform, stood an Araxian larger than any Jack had seen. Her shell bore markings similar to Lyra's but more elaborate, and she wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor. Queen Zara Vex stood motionless as Lyra walked forward and bowed formally. For a long moment, the Queen didn't move or speak. Then, to the surprise of everyone in the room, she stepped down from the platform and embraced her daughter with all 6 limbs. My child, the Queen said, her voice thick with emotion. I thought you lost to the stars forever. Jack and the other humans watched this reunion from a respectful distance. The Queen's guard eyed them suspiciously, but no one interfered. After the emotional greeting, Queen Zara regained her formal demeanor and returned to her platform. Explain your survival and these creatures you have brought into our royal presence. Lyra told her story, the battle, the crash, Jack's rescue, their months in the escape pod, the capture by the Vorn, and their eventual escape. The Queen listened silently, her expression unreadable to human eyes. When Lyra finished, Queen Zara turned her attention to Jack. Step forward, human. Jack moved closer, feeling very small under the Queen's gaze. You saved my daughter's life, the Queen stated. For this, the Araxian Empire owes you a debt. What do you call yourself? Jack Miller, Your Majesty, he said, trying to remember the proper way to address royalty. I'm just a mechanic from Earth. Not just a mechanic, Lyra interrupted. Mother Jack and his people have technologies our empire needs. They can terraform planets, make them habitable without fighting over the few worlds both we and the Draxids can live on. The Queen's attention sharpened. Is this true? Jack nodded. Yes. Humans have been doing it for generations. It's how we've colonized worlds that weren't perfectly suited to us. And you would share this technology? The Queen asked. I believe Earth would, especially if it meant peace in this part of the galaxy, Jack replied. And if it meant protection from the Vorn, who have been capturing humans. Queen Zara was silent for a long moment. Then she stood. I must consult with my advisors. You will all be given quarters suitable to your status as saviors of the princess. We will speak again tomorrow. As they were led away, Lyra touched Jack's arm with one of her limbs. You did well. My mother rarely shows such interest in new ideas. Do you think she'll agree to contact Earth? I don't know, Lyra admitted. The war with the Draxids has gone on for so long, many cannot imagine ending it. But your terraforming technology offers a new path. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat looking out a window at the stars, thinking of Earth. It had been months since he'd been home. Did anyone even know he was alive? A soft sound made him turn. Lyra entered his room, her shell gleaming softly in the dim light. I couldn't sleep either, she said, sitting beside him. Tomorrow will change everything. Are you worried? Jack asked. Yes, Lyra admitted, but also hopeful. Jack, what you suggested to my mother, could it really work? Could terraforming end the war? Jack nodded slowly. If both sides are fighting over habitable worlds, and suddenly there are many more worlds available, why keep fighting? Earth went through many wars over resources before we developed technologies to create what we needed. Lyra looked out at the stars. I've been thinking about what you told me in the escape pod, about humans. You're so young as a species, yet you've developed technologies we never considered. Perhaps because we've been focused on war for so long, we stopped looking for other solutions. Different perspectives can be valuable, Jack said. That's something humans have learned. Tomorrow I will ask my mother to call a war council, Lyra said. And I want you there, to explain your ideas directly to our leaders. Me? I'm not a diplomat or scientist. I'm just the human who saved a princess, helped free hundreds of slaves, and might now help end a war that has lasted for generations, Lyra interrupted. You are more than just anything, Jack Miller. The next morning, they were summoned back to the Queen's chamber. More Araxians were present this time, military commanders and royal advisors. The Queen looked down at them from her platform. Princess, Lyra has convinced me to listen to your proposal, she said to Jack. Speak, human, tell us how your terraforming might change the future of our empire. Jack took a deep breath as he stood before the Araxian War Council. The room was filled with important military leaders and royal advisors. All of them were watching him with their 6 eyes, waiting to hear what this strange human had to say. On Earth, we faced similar problems, Jack began. We needed more room for our growing population but had limited habitable planets. Instead of fighting over them, we developed ways to change planets to suit our needs. He explained the basics of terraforming, how humans altered atmospheres, introduced plants that could survive harsh conditions, and gradually transformed uninhabitable worlds into new homes. With terraforming, both Araxians and Draxids could have all the worlds they need, Jack concluded. The war could end without either side surrendering. Commander Vexator, the Queen's top military leader, spoke harshly. The Draxids have killed millions of our people. We should destroy them, not offer them worlds. More war means more death on both sides, Lyra responded. I have seen enough death. The council debated for hours. Some supported exploring the human technology, while others wanted to continue the war until the Draxids were destroyed. Queen Zara listened to all sides before speaking. The human's idea has merit, she finally said, but the Draxids may not agree to peace. And there is another threat we must consider. These Vorn slavers who captured my daughter and have been taking humans as well. The Queen turned to Jack. Your people need to be warned about the Vorn, and we need more information about your terraforming technology. I propose this. We will send a delegation to Earth led by Princess Lyra. Jack Miller will guide them. Meanwhile, we will reach out to the Draxids with a careful message about possible new solutions to our conflict. Lyra bowed to her mother. A wise decision. When can we leave? 1 week, the Queen answered. We must prepare properly for first official contact with humans. Over the next week, Jack worked with Araxian engineers to prepare a royal shuttle for the journey to Earth. Lyra selected a small group to accompany her, 2 royal guards, a scientist, and a diplomat. Lisa and Eric would also join them, eager to return home and help introduce their world to the Araxians. The rest of the freed slaves would remain under Araxian protection until arrangements could be made to return them to their home worlds. The night before their departure, Queen Zara requested a private meeting with Jack. My daughter has changed, the Queen said when they were alone. She speaks differently, thinks differently since her time with you. Jack felt uncomfortable under the Queen's intense gaze. The princess is very adaptable. Indeed. The Queen moved closer. Tell me, human, in your culture, what is the relationship between a princess and a common mechanic? Jack swallowed nervously. On Earth, people can be friends regardless of their social position. Friends? The Queen repeated. Is that all you are to my daughter? Jack wasn't sure how to answer. His relationship with Lyra had grown complex during their time together. They had saved each other's lives, learned each other's languages and customs, and developed a deep bond that was difficult to define. "I respect Princess Lyra greatly," he said carefully, "and I would never do anything to harm her or her position." The Queen studied him for a long moment. "Good, because my daughter speaks of you with great respect as well. She believes you may help change the future of both our peoples. Do not disappoint her." The next morning they prepared to leave. The royal shuttle was much more comfortable than the escape pod Jack and Lyra had shared for months. It had sleeping quarters, a meeting room, and advanced navigation systems. As they prepared for departure, an urgent message arrived for the Queen. She entered the shuttle to speak with Lyra. "The Draxids have responded to our message," she said, her voice tense. "They are willing to meet and discuss the human terraforming technology. They, too, have encountered the Vorn and lost people to them." Lyra's eyes widened. "This is unexpected. The Draxids never agree to meetings." "Perhaps they also seek a new path," the Queen said. "I will meet with them while you are on Earth. Be careful, my daughter. We still don't know if humans can be fully trusted." "I trust Jack," Lyra said firmly. "And I believe Earth will see the benefits of an alliance with Araxians against the Vorn threat." The Queen touched her daughter's shell in farewell. "Return safely. The Empire needs its future queen." As the shuttle left the Araxian fleet behind, Jack sat beside Lyra on the bridge. "Are you nervous about going to Earth?" "Yes," she admitted. "I will be the first Araxian most humans have ever seen. How will they react to me?" "With curiosity, probably," Jack said. "Humans have always wondered if we were alone in the universe. Finding out we're not is exciting and scary," Lyra added. "Different can be frightening." Jack smiled. "You weren't what I expected when I first saw you. Now I can't imagine not having you in my life." Lyra's shell changed color slightly, which Jack had learned was the Araxian equivalent of a blush. "You humans are very direct with your feelings. Is that bad?" "No," Lyra said. "It's refreshing. Araxian royalty rarely speaks openly about emotions." Their journey to Earth took 2 weeks. Jack used this time to teach Lyra and the other Araxians about human customs and behavior. Lisa and Eric helped, explaining Earth's government structure and how first contact should be handled. When they finally approached Earth, Jack felt a mix of emotions. He was coming home after months away, but he was bringing aliens with him. Everything would change once the shuttle landed. "We're being hailed," Lisa said from the communication station. "Earth Defense Command wants to know who we are." Jack took a deep breath and activated the video link. An older man in a military uniform appeared on screen, his expression shifting from professional to shocked as he saw Jack. "This is Jack Miller, mechanic from the exploration vessel Horizon," Jack said. "Clearly, I'm returning to Earth with representatives from the Araxian Empire, a spacefaring civilization seeking peaceful contact with humanity." There was silence as the man stared at Lyra and the other Araxians visible behind Jack. Then, "Mr. Miller, your ship was reported destroyed 6 months ago. We need to verify your identity and assess this situation." "Understood," Jack replied. "We're prepared to follow all protocols for safe landing and meeting." The next 12 hours were intense. The shuttle was directed to a secure facility in a remote area. Teams of government officials, scientists, and military personnel met them. Jack, Lisa, and Eric were separated for debriefing while the Araxians waited in the shuttle. Finally, Jack was allowed to return to Lyra. "They're ready to meet you officially," he told her. "The Secretary General of the United Nations will be here tomorrow." "Is this good?" Lyra asked. "Very good," Jack assured her. "That's the closest thing Earth has to a planetary leader." The meeting the next day made history. Princess Lyra, representing the Araxian Empire, met with Earth's leaders. She spoke of the war with the Draxids, the threat of the Vorn, and the possibility of an alliance that would benefit all species. Earth agreed to share terraforming technology with both Araxians and Draxids if it would help end their war. In return, the Araxians would help protect human ships from Vorn slavers and share their advanced space travel technology. 6 months later, representatives from Earth, the Araxian Empire, and the Draxid Confederation met on a neutral space station. Jack stood beside Princess Lyra as the three civilizations signed the first-ever Galactic Concord. Queen Zara, watching from nearby, had mixed feelings. The war that had defined her reign was ending, not in victory but in cooperation. Her daughter was changing centuries of tradition. Yet she could not deny that this new path offered hope instead of endless fighting. As the leaders of three worlds shook hands and touched limbs in agreement, Jack looked at Lyra. "We did it," he said quietly. "We did," she agreed. "This is just the beginning, Jack. There is so much more our peoples can learn from each other." Jack smiled. "I'm looking forward to it." Under the terms of the Galactic Concord, terraforming, projects began on 12 previously uninhabitable worlds. Human scientists worked alongside Araxian and Draxid experts. Together, they created new homes for all three species. The Vorn threat was addressed by a joint fleet that patrolled the borders of their territory, preventing further slave raids. And on the first successfully terraformed world, a special ceremony took place. Princess Lyravex, heir to the Araxian throne, announced her intention to form a permanent diplomatic bond with Jack Miller of Earth. It was unprecedented. No royal had ever joined with an alien species before. But as Queen Zara observed, the obvious connection between her daughter and the human who had saved her, she gave her blessing. "My daughter was lost," the Queen said at the ceremony. "This human brought her back to me. Now they will help bring our peoples together." As Jack and Lyra completed the bonding ritual, representatives from dozens of worlds watched. This union symbolized a new era of cooperation instead of conflict, of building instead of destroying. The galaxy would never be the same again. And it all began because a human mechanic and an alien princess found each other among the stars.